contemporary world, being a nerd is less about having niche knowledge pertaining to a given academic field and more how you define yourself through consumerism. Consumerism is an idea rooted in free market economics where the buying and accumulation of things is broadly encouraged and/or deemed to be morally correct. Nerd culture is fundamentally centered around accumulating more stuff, a reasonable conclusion when your target group started out as social outcasts playing D&D and watching Star Trek and evolved later on into overpaid tech zealots with newfound disposable income. Escapism can never be the end because eventually you have to go back to the real world. Ideally, escapism should inspire others to change the world for better instead of upholding some comfortable status quo of some kind. I think the best franchise to focus on is the biggest franchise by profit by far. The ethos of Pokemon perfectly is summed up by the iconic slogan, "Gotta catch 'em all." While the philosophy of Pokemon can be simply to explore, make new friends, and to care for creatures you share the world with, it can just as easily boil down to mindless collecting and unending market speculation. Recently, Pokemon cards have seen an absurd uptick in interest, both from would-be fans of the franchise and scalpers, investors, seeking to make money off of the new hype. Going online, you can see various pieces of shiny cardboard listed for hundreds of dollars. I will mention that big box stores like Walmart and Target are usually so picked through that you'd be reasonable for thinking they'd long been discontinued from the shelves. This includes a lot of local hobby shops as well, albeit with a higher likelihood of the existing product having been marked up in some way. Scalping and manipulation on the resale market is insane for collecting or just trying to build a deck. While this isn't good for people just trying to get into the hobby, the Pokemon Company sure isn't complaining, so it must be for the best. After all, nerds keep buying this stuff even for scalper prices because the instant gratification is simply too overwhelming. People constantly have the need to prove themselves and even to others online that they're having fun. Surely spending money on escapist fantasies will somehow absolve them of the fact that they're just peasants eating gruel. By gruel, I mean cards, and by peasant, I mean me. I mean, just look at this Slowpoke I pulled not too long ago that's worth about 20 bucks now. I never know if I'll get a great card like this in any pack, but the fact that I have before keeps me coming back, like a gambling addiction. Like, take this Squirtle, for example. I pulled him like a couple weeks ago, and he's really cute, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that he's worth the amount of money listed on tcgplayer.com. It kind of reminds me of when a lot of people talk about modern or even contemporary art installments, where they look at a painting that's just like a bunch of blobs of color, and they don't really understand it, partially because of the price point. I feel like it's one thing if the painting is just there on its own, but it's another thing if it has an absurd value that can potentially change somebody's life. You know, I don't think that this guy is going to be changing my life anytime soon, but the price is absurd and I think kind of portrays our lack of cohesion when it comes to what we place value on. I don't think that a shiny piece of cardboard is necessarily worth over $50. It's cool art, I just can't justify the price. A similar case can be said for in-game purchases. Virtual cosmetics effectively create a class system within a video game where players that do not buy add-ons are called names tantamount to pleb. Terms like default skin are common in first-person shooters where people can tell how much money you can afford to invest in your cosmetic alterations. In an attempt to escape the real world of working for wages, you're ultimately met with a world not unlike our own, where people are nonetheless divided by their finances, their class. It's why it's so stupid to assert that anyone is inserting politics into video games. Politics is a part of every aspect of our lives, including our hobbies. I previously referred to nerds as social outcasts, though today that statement couldn't be further from the truth. Video games have surpassed movies in total generated profit. Conventions see more attendees every single year. Once obscure pastimes have exploded in popularity, so much so that it would be wholly inaccurate for anyone to claim righteousness because of some perceived minority status because I play video games. Despite this, there's a certain appeal behind victimhood, of being simultaneously correct and superior to those who look down on you, and persecuted. Though the bigotry that some nerds exhibit against others is at its core no different from that of the jocks. Video games as a medium of entertainment have always been played by everyone of every background, yet there is still a certain expectation that in order to self-identify as a #gamer, you have to play, or more accurately, consume the right kinds of games. For example, I am a gamer not because I play The Sims or Stardew Valley, but because I play Elden Ring. Insert clip of me being very bad at Elden Ring. One game is feminine and a waste of time, while the other requires hours of grind, skill, and memorizing enemy attacks. None of these statements are necessarily wrong either. The Sims is kind of a waste of time. Elden Ring is mentally challenging and requires more strategizing than deciding what shirt your virtual doll in your computerized dollhouse is going to wear. But that's not the point. The point is policing how people have fun. The same people who deride feminists for making female characters look too mannish, making their self-insert gay, and forcing them to look at black people, calling them the fun police, never acknowledge this invisible hypocrisy. Part of the reason I think so many women play what is colloquially called cozy games, or even just mobile games on their phone, is because they had some sort of adverse experience in other gaming communities. I was called plenty of slurs and sexualized in open mic Overwatch matches, but never in many of the kinds of single-player, story-oriented games I play now. That's not to say I don't look for bigger titles, only that I try to give everybody a chance. A market dominated by a certain type of faceless internet dude bro will shout from the rooftops, "Go woke or go broke," or assert that the developers must be morons in some way because they don't value finances enough. Surely they know that the fan base they are making these products for hold anti-progressive beliefs, therefore they should abide by the will of the dollar. It's like they think that a writer or game designer can't possibly have an idea in their heads that doesn't revolve around how much money they're going to make the company. It's a sentiment that can only be expressed by the kind of people that do not fundamentally see video games or even other mediums such as comic books as art meant to evoke an emotional response in an audience and challenge their preconceptions, but as cash grabs forever poisoned by the market. In this way, nerds sell themselves short, forever obsessed with character stats to how much profit a title can rake in. Granted, I play D&D, but I understand that obsessing over statistics and watching big numbers yes, can be fun, but it's not everything. Again, you're selling yourself short when you forget the humanistic aspect. The one that, against all odds, and yes, even logic, sometimes chooses empathy over financial gain. On a side note, I will say the new Assassin's Creed is not going to be bad because there's a black guy and a woman ninja in it. It's going to be bad because of microtransactions and because Ubisoft fundamentally has not changed any of the mechanics involved with Assassin's Creed. Fandom can be really stupid, so stupid that it can bring you to buy and consume a lot of stuff you don't need to an excessive amount. Look at all this stuff I can justify buying if I'm still a fan. I once saw someone on TikTok trying to explain why people buy Funko Pops, stating that for smaller fandoms, it's some of the only merchandise they can find of their favorite characters and media. As though you can't just like a show or video game, you must invest eternally. Fan culture and fandom simultaneously demands nothing and everything. It demands fan service moments in shows while also acting as a sort of modern day mode of worship fit with false plushy idols and other overpriced merchandise. Studio Ghibli still puts out a ton of merch, though the films can stand on their own, in part because the aim of the movies are to be good films with characters that grow throughout a story with well-crafted themes first and foremost. It's a level of creative optimism that I want for all other fandoms, even if they don't necessarily want it for themselves. On an only slightly separate note, if you have to watch a video explaining the lore of a certain title you're interested in, one of two things occurred. One, you were scared to form your own opinion of this work because you believe somehow that there is a predetermined correct interpretation. Or two, you just didn't watch the movie, play the video game, read the book, but still want to engage in the fandom, the nerd club. I have yet to figure out which is worse, though one thing remains certain: both are exclusionary. They rely on the idea that being a part of a fandom is not taking your own views into consideration and forming your own opinion, but rather bouncing back and forth between others within a given group. At the end of the day, I want more. I don't know if there's any way to not just be a mindless consumer, but I do know one fact. It's good to be a little self-introspective. I'm hoping that in sharing my self-introspection that maybe others can do the same for themselves and think about if maybe what I'm buying into, whether it be with my ideas or my cash, is really worth it.